Hello, and welcome back to Unwisdom. I am unwise, and it has occurred to me that some of you may be wanting proof that this world is in fact a survival-only world and has never been switched over to creative. The only proof of that I can think of would be to earn an achievement. So that's what we're going to do. I have the whole list of locked achievements over here, and there's lots of very interesting ones in here, but the one that I am gonna go for is this one, alternative fuel. So here is my dried kelp block, and here is my furnace. Okay, where is my achievement? Hasn't come through yet. Give it time. Give it time. Minecraft's gonna call me a liar. Just kidding. So now you know that it's the real deal, and this was all built by hand, just like I said it was. And you can trust that that will continue to be the case. One of the main things that I want to do with this episode is actually to work on that Mediterranean city over by spawn, grabbing some wool to lay out the different buildings that I want to put in. As you can see, all the buildings in this area have a very specific color palette, and a lot of them, if not all of them, are touching and or connected to one another. I plan to keep this kind of style throughout the rest of the city, with a couple of exceptions. I would like some taller buildings in maybe this area and over there. And also, I would like to take a lighter, probably mostly white color palette for this section over here. And I'd like to make the houses bigger, a little bit more extravagant. Some of the ones in here are actually very small, kind of cramped. That's a missing block. Some of these bedrooms, for example, are just absolutely tiny. Personally, would not want to live there at all. But they fit the vibe and the theme of the place. So I think what I want to do right now is focus on the houses in this area over here. I think that's going to have the biggest impact on the skyline, or what you see when you first come through the portal or when you get here from spawn. I think it'll just make it look more substantial. This seems like a good size. It might end up being like a 2-tiered build or something with a really large balcony. Yeah, I like that. Another important thing is I want to keep the buildings pretty close to this wall. That way I can keep the path looking like that. I think I mentioned earlier that a lot of it's going to be clay, but there's also grass over here, and I haven't really decided if I'm going to keep this grass or if I'm going to convert that over to clay as well. I think it probably makes more sense in the long term to make that all into clay. Clay is kind of a pain to get, although not as much since the last update, since you can use dripstone for that. And I do have a setup over there somewhere that is slowly but surely collecting the stuff, so that's pretty handy. Thinking over here I could have a little bit of a overhang, like up higher though, like off the ground. So maybe, well, higher than this still. That's one of the things about this city, is that it's going to have a whole lot of balconies. Because who wouldn't want balconies overlooking a bay like this? And also, I think that just really fits in with the Mediterranean style. I'm thinking that it makes a lot of sense for these buildings to be kind of short in front this dimension and then longer this way so that I can get more, first of all, more variety in the front, but then also I can have more houses that have views of the bay here. Okay, whatever house goes in this spot right here is gonna have to be huge. This is like a premier spot. It may not even be a house that goes here. I may have to do some sort of like official looking building just because this is just too good of a spot, too prime of real estate. There's also got to be a really awesome house over there, like just enormous. I just remembered that this farm is very much manual and is not currently collecting, or rather producing, anything. I also don't remember what the dimensions are. 2, 3, 4 by 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's just a square. It's actually a 4 by 5. Ah, kind of forgot how much of a pain this still is. I bet I could automate it. Just gonna do a quick test here. Okay, and what about this? Yes. Can we get different outputs based on what kind of block this is? No. The outputs are the same no matter what. Okay. I could try counting the inputs. So when the dirt block gets pushed over, that would be 1. When the water bottle gets dispensed, that would be 2. And then the next one would just push it along, so it would be 1, 2. So they would just be alternating. We're also going to want to make sure that this input powers this dropper so that we get a bottle of water dispensed every time that a block gets pushed over. Okay. There might need to be a delay on that. Yeah, definitely need a delay. More delay. Also more bottles. Nice. It seems like the glass bottles aren't always falling out afterwards. That could be a problem. Why would they not do that? The only thing I could think of would be an item filter to pull those out. That only takes glass bottles. Yeah, that's probably the way. I think I've got something working here. Yep, this is looking good. Awesome. So I did add this circuit. It's called a T flip-flop, but all it really does is take the redstone pulse that comes from a observer and turns it into a constant alternating output. Basically, on every other signal that comes out of this observer, we're going to push a block over and turn it into mud. It's going to detect again when it turns into clay because of the dripstone, and that will trigger the next block to be pushed over and turned into mud. And no, I did not make this circuit myself. This is from Mumbo, and I will link that video in the description. I'm gonna need to decide on a good spot for this farm. The footprint of it is actually going to be pretty large, despite the farm itself being rather small. That's just because once the row of clay blocks is finished, I'm going to push it out of the way to make room for another row, and all those rows are going to get pushed to the push limit, and then I'm going to push all of those blocks together in a different direction and make a 12 by 12 cube of clay blocks. So I need at least a 12 by 12 space plus whatever extra space for the actual redstone of the farm. I'm thinking over here is going to be the best spot because this is where I want to put the biggest builds in the whole area. I'm thinking something like this, with these two buildings looking very similar and being rather tall. Definitely taller than this point over here, but not nearly as tall as some of the skyscrapers over in the Tundra City. Just gotta get rid of some of these. Except I want to keep the blocks. It's one of the very convenient things about being on a mushroom biome is I can get these mushroom blocks, and these are one of my building blocks for some of these buildings over here. Not this one. Also need a hopper. I never did figure out a sorting system for the hopper. I think I'm just gonna leave it as is because there's only ever gonna be a limited number of glass bottles in there. Lovely. I always thought it was interesting that redstone gets destroyed by water, but if you are putting your redstone out in the rain, that's not really the case. It just doesn't do anything. Can you imagine if it was just raining and all of a sudden your redstone was gone? That'd be pretty terrible. Can't forget that little piece. And I think that's the circuit built. I need dirt. And the water bottles. And I want to fill them up too right away. If that all fits in my inventory. Don't really need any of those. Or this, or this. So as I've been working on this contraption, I've kind of realized that there's a bit of an issue with it in that I won't be able to push dirt into it the way that I thought I was going to be able to. I was hoping that I would be able to push all the clay out, push it across, and then push that either up or out somehow into like a block. And that would theoretically work, but it requires a constant stream of dirt blocks coming into the system, and there's just no good way to do that, to set that up. So what I think I want to do instead is I want to have it wrap around and use the clay blocks to push more dirt blocks into the system. So basically it'll come out here. The whole thing will be loaded with dirt, and the clay blocks will get pushed out this way. They'll go up, they'll go back over, and they'll come down, and it'll be kind of a constant feed of blocks pushing all the dirt blocks through. It's going to have a lot less capacity, unfortunately, but I think because of how slow the farm's going to work anyways, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then this would be where we want to detect it. I don't have any observers. Gonna need more than that, but that's fine for now. I think this will work. Maybe. Possibly. Yes. No. Definitely not. Need to stop that redstone signal. I think this works. Also, these can be like this. Much better. I'm just gonna send this up to push limit. So we can't push any higher than this. Need my observer to detect that. We want the piston to push over that way. I don't know if it matters which way the observer looks. Probably not. Well, not like that. Cool. And here we are. Now this piston needs to push down. We need observer here. Pretty sure I can do this like that. Redstone, 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 redstone. Repeater on 4, repeater on 2. And then we just push this all the way down. I need a double chest to hold all of the water bottles. And I need a hopper. I wonder if you can automatically fill water bottles. So now that this contraption is done, I do recognize that it's maybe not the most efficient farm in the world, since it kind of only processes one block at a time. But I still had a lot of fun building it, and I hope that you had a lot of fun watching me build it. I do plan on adding some manual sections behind the farm here, since I've got a lot of room left over in this building footprint. But that is all I have time for today. In the next episode, I am hoping to build up those houses that we laid out earlier in the episode, and I hope to see you there. Goodbye.